Yes, welcome to the Biz Communication Show. I'm your host, Bill Lampton. You and I both know that powerful communication skills are essential for your business. The more effective your communication, the greater your leadership, sales, customer service, management, image, and yes, profits will be. And so that's why every week on the Biz Communication Show, I bring before us a recognized communication expert. We have a conversation about a topic that fits their area of expertise. We're happy to have you with us today on both video and the podcast version. Again, I'm Bill Lampton, your host. Our guest today is Gayle Ely, a speaker, executive coach, and trainer. Ironically, Gayle worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture for 12 years, and I am thinking whimsically, maybe that's how she learned to grow things, and she helps businesses grow now. She says that she helps frustrated and overwhelmed clients get focused and re-energized under the theme Total Life Leadership. She helps clients gain clarity and take action. I've known Gayle for a while, and I've known that she is an expert in behavioral instruments, especially DISC, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So join me, please, as I welcome Gayle Ely to the Biz Communication Show. Hello, Gayle.
Hi, Bill. I'm happy to be with you today.
Delighted that you'll share your knowledge with us. One of the first things that comes to mind when I think about behavioral instruments, and there are quite a number of them that are highly reputable. I mentioned DISC, there's Myers-Briggs and some others. I would imagine, Gayle, that sometimes you have a prospective client, you're talking to them about behavioral instruments and how they can assist an individual and assist a company in understanding and bettering their communication. And you get the reply, well, I just don't happen to believe in that kind of stuff. I don't believe you could just fill out a few questions and find out anything important. What do you say to somebody who says that?
Well, Bill, that's a great question. And what I would say, I've never had anyone say that to me, but if I did have someone say that to me, I would say, I would probe them a little bit because, I'm a coach, so I like to ask questions. So I would ask them what their concerns are, and I would certainly let them know that whatever instrument we're using, and in particular, we're talking about DISC today, that it is a validated assessment. And in this case, in particular, it's been administered hundreds of thousands of times all over the world. It was developed in the 1920s, and it's been validated both by the company who developed it and by external sources. And by valid, what I mean, it measures what it says that it measures. And that's what validity means. So I would try to assure them that it's that the test that I want to provide to them, or the assessment tool that we want to use, is validated.
Okay, let's define DISC. It is an acronym, D-I-S-C. What does that mean?
Well, before we talk about what DISC stands for, I think it's important to understand what the model is. And what the model is an understanding. When you take the assessment, you have a better understanding of your own behavioral tendencies, and you understand better that other people may have different tendencies. And I think when you're able to really do that and get really good at it, you really have a powerful conversation for creating successful and productive communication and relationships. Specifically, DISC, D-I-S-C, is an acronym. And it's an acronym for the 4 personality or behavioral styles that it's measuring for. And the 4 are D for dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness, and C for conscientiousness. So those are the 4 behavioral styles that the DISC assessment tool is measuring for.
One of the things that came to my mind when you talked about validity is that I can remember, and maybe it's the reason I started with the question about skeptics. I can remember early in my career when I truly was an unbeliever, we might say, about DISC or any of these assessment types. And then one day, Gayle, I was in college administration. I was seeking a different position, so I went to a headhunter. After an interview and after they checked my credentials, they said, well, Bill, everything looks good, but we have this one instrument that we want you to complete first. So at this point, I was out of choices. I completed DISC, and believe me, when I got my report, my question was, who's been watching me shave every morning? I could not believe that filling out 24 simple questions, which you do in 10 minutes or less, could give such an accurate profile. And I would imagine that the people that you have administered DISC to many times, there are a few who say that doesn't fit me, or this part of it doesn't fit me, but in the overwhelming majority of cases, I would assume people feel what I felt. Gosh, this is a real reflection.
For the most part, that is absolutely the case. And when I provide them with the 20-page report that I provide them after they take the assessment online, there are a number of statements that go through that describe that style that is perhaps their predominant style. And I ask them, does that resonate with you or doesn't it? And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. For the most part, it does. And the instrument that I use, which is an online assessment, can actually provide you not just with what behavioral tendency do you have, but how strong is that tendency for you? Or, is it a more moderate tendency for you? So, you can get down some real details when you do the online assessment and you have them, and you take them through the process of the report.
Well, what has been beneficial for me, most beneficial, after learning DISC, and I'll have to add that I was in management positions for 20 years. It was only in the last 5 years that I was aware of DISC and had learned from it. What happened as a result for me, early in my career, the first three-fourths of it as a manager, I kept wondering, what's wrong with these people? Why don't they like to communicate the way I do?
Uh-huh.
And you might even make the mistake of thinking, okay, I'll change their style of communication. Okay, I think that's about as successful as saying, I'm going to change this person after we get married. So to me, it was a great revelation of how to relate to people. And as you have indicated, there are these 4 predominant styles that have been identified and validated. So I'll ask you this question. Are we all one style, or do we spread across the DISC? Are we some of each?
Well, we all have all 4 styles. And the important thing to remember is that one style isn't better than another style. All styles are, valuable to an organization. In fact, there was a study done a number of years ago where they polled CEOs of Fortune 500 companies who'd taken the DISC, and it was very surprising that they fell almost equally into all 4 styles, almost equally. What the data shows and what the assessment shows is that we tend to favor 1 or 2 styles. And sometimes that's because of the place where we're working. Sometimes it's, how we've grown up, that kind of thing. But we tend to favor 1 or 2 styles. And sometimes we're very strong in a style. Sometimes we're more moderate in a style. But we all have all 4 tendencies, and we can call on all 4 tendencies when we need to. We just kind of lean toward 1 or 2.
Let's have an example here of how the different styles, if they are not familiar with DISC,
Hmm.
how they would have trouble relating to each other and working together. For example, what kind of clash might there be between the D style, the dominance, and the I style, the influence? What might be some of the, as I say, a clash of our conflicts between those two?
Well, I'll tell you a story. I'll give you an example. I was doing some training with two other people, and we were having lunch after our meeting because it was a half a day training. So we were all having lunch. And I was sitting between a D and an I. And I'm something different. So it was so interesting to watch. A D, the dominant style is one that just likes to get down to the bottom, get to the results. You know, just get to the bottom line. Don't give me a whole lot of details. The I style is the talkative, spontaneous, kind of party style. And I was watching of course, who was talking in this with the I, of course. And the D was like, well, what did you think? How'd it go? How'd our training go? And the I was telling all kinds of stories about what he did last week. And the D was rolling his eyes going, look, that was not my question. So, you know, the way that the D and the I can kind of rub each other the wrong way is the D just wants an answer to the question, and the I wants to tell you a story. And, you know, if the D doesn't really want to hear the whole story, the D wants to get to the bottom line, and the I enjoys telling the story. So you can see how there could be a conflict there.
Yes, the I type, for example, if the I type was called in for a meeting with his or her boss this week, the I type might begin the conversation by saying, well, who's going to win, Auburn or Georgia? And the D type has the agenda right there. He doesn't care about he or she doesn't care about Saturday's football game. Let's just get right to the facts. And then we might also go and look at the S and the C style. The S style is, the way I understand it, is very slow to act because the S style wants consensus. Good team player, wants everybody happy. And then you get to that C style. The C style I picture as the guy we used to see in the movies sitting in the back room with a green shade on, who is working with the numbers and the facts and really has no room, again, for small talk. So you've got two of the styles that are very people oriented, and we've got two of the styles who are very task oriented. When people don't recognize that these are just natural differences, there's nothing wrong with the people, all kinds of mismanagement can happen, misunderstandings, bad feelings. But what happens, Gayle, when you work with a group and then later on you hear from them about the good effects that DISC has had for them?
Well, I'll share with you an organization that I worked with. It was an insurance agency who had probably about 11 staff members, and we did an all-day training with them. And they have inculcated DISC into their entire culture. So now every time they hire someone, they call me and ask me to do a DISC assessment for them. I think what people say is, when they take the assessment themselves and they understand the styles of the people that they're working with, what they say is, oh my gosh, no wonder we had trouble communicating. You know, no wonder we felt like there was something wrong with us, you know? So they begin to realize it's not really about them. Everyone is valuable. It's just that they're different. And what I love about DISC and the whole philosophy behind DISC really is, the idea is to understand your own style, to understand the style of the person you're communicating with, and then to flex to their style so that the communication becomes more fluid. So it's interesting. I like to think about it. I think you know what the golden rule is, Bill, right?
Yes.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. DISC is really about what I call the platinum rule. And the platinum rule is do unto others as they would like to have done.
Aha.
So the idea behind this, learn yourself, learn others, and walk into the room knowing who you are, what your style is, what the other style is, and then flex to that other style to help them become more comfortable. And gosh, if both of you are doing that, you're going to have some effective communication.
I'm sure that sometimes when you administer DISC to a group, you might have a group session when they all come together afterwards and they bring in their DISC reports and they're ready to discuss them. And when I've done that, it truly sort of breaks the ice with people. When you start, the moderator, you or I, start explaining what DISC is about, these different styles, somebody else say, oh, that's Joe over there, or that's Sally, or hey, that you got me. And so it's an icebreaker, and it opens the way for people to understand why miscommunication has happened, why there might be ill feelings, why some people feel shut out. So those are some of the tremendous values to me. One of the things I'd like to get back to now, though, when we're talking about understand your style, understand someone else's style, and adjust to that. Okay, somebody might say, well, Gayle, that sounds like manipulation to me. How do you answer that?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it really goes back to motive. You know, if your motive is to understand someone so you can get them to do what you want them to do, you know, that I guess that could be manipulative. Now, if you're a leader, that's in some ways what you want. But, you know, the idea is to understand the person, to understand that their style is not any less than your style, that your style is not any better than their style. The idea is to communicate effectively. So it really goes to motive. If you're really trying to manipulate someone, then you could use DISC to do that. You can use just about anything to do that, but it really goes back to the motive is better communication so that we can get things done, so that we can, you know, sell more, so that our bottom line looks better. If that's the motive, then DISC is going to be very successful.
I agree fully. And one of the things I say about if somebody asks me, is that manipulation? I say, not any more than wearing a business suit to work when you've got an important meeting. That's not manipulating. That's just adjusting to a situation and what the situation needs. Somebody could say, well, you're manipulating when you use very perfect English, or there are a lot of ways we could be accused of manipulating. No, we're not. We're doing simply what's needed for the occasion. Gayle, another topic that we can touch on briefly in the short time we have left. Being in the workplace, as you and I have for a couple of decades at least, we've known that a person's marital harmony has a lot to do with their productivity at work. If someone comes to work tremendously stressed because of a bad home life situation, they cannot possibly give 100% at work that way. So have you administered DISC to married couples? Or if you haven't, what would you see the benefit of that?
Well, I have not done that personally, but I have talked to people who have, particularly counselors or therapists or even pastors who do premarital work. And they will use the DISC assessment to help that couple begin from the very beginning of their, you know, permanent relationship to understand each other's styles. And it's been very, very useful. I even know, you know, even after the marriage, if the marriage has been having some difficulties, I know of people who have administered to just simply help couples understand each other's communication style. And simply understanding that can make a world of difference.
I mentioned at the start of our conversation the revelation I had when I got my first DISC survey, and I don't call it a test, I call it a survey. My first report, I brought it home, showed it to my wife. And my wife, Sandra, is not the most demonstrative person when it comes to humor. She'll chuckle a little bit, but this time when she read my DISC report, she truly wound up rolling on the floor laughing. And she said, boy, have they got you pegged. So a week later, she decided, maybe it'd be a good idea if you administered the DISC survey to me. We did, and then it was my turn to chuckle a little bit. But at that time, we had been married quite a while, and we still saw, okay, this is why there's been some friction here, and this is why there's been some friction over here. And my experience would be, and my judgment would be, this would be wonderful for couples who are considering a permanent relationship or trying to maintain one that's already started. Gayle, this has been a wonderful overview of DISC. You're a recognized authority on the topic. So I know some of our viewers and our podcast listeners want to get in touch with you. So please give us your contact information.
Sure, Bill, I'd be happy to. I am at Gayle, Gayle, at total-life-leadership.com or at 678-520-7477.
Thank you, Gayle. And now that you've given your contact information, I'm happy to provide mine. Biz Communication Guy. So logically, my website is B-I-Z, bizcommunicationguy.com. Invite you to go there, find out the services that I offer to individuals and to corporations. Sign up for my newsletter, subscribe to the podcast, and of course, my contact information is on there as well. Gayle, any closing thoughts about the topic we discussed that you'd like to share to pull this all together?
Well, I think I just want to share what I shared at the beginning, and that is when you really get an understanding of your own style and of the style of others, that is a powerful combination for creating successful communication and relationships, both at work and at home.
Well put, as were all of your comments during our conversation. Thanks so much, Gayle, and I'm sure that a few months down the road, we'll be calling you to schedule another guest appearance on the Biz Communication Show. To all of those who have been with us today, we invite you to be with us next week when I will host another communication expert who can help us boost our communication skills and greatly impact not only our businesses, but our lives as well. Thanks so much for being with us today. I'm your host, Bill Lampton.